Welcome back to RWBY Anime Review, episode number 2. This is when we're reviewing RWBY Volume 2, the second season for the series. Unlike the first season where it was 16 episodes, this one is only 12. Yes, and also, none of these are technically multi-part except for like the last two are. You can kind of say this is basically like a series of stuff that happens in this particular season. Where, like, there's no real. Now, in the case of Team Jumper, there's no subplot involving John this particular season, which is kind of weird. Because last season there was, this season there technically wasn't. Well, there's a subplot for like one. There's like one minor subplot involving a dance. Otherwise, though, he just there for comic relief this season. And Pyra is still training him. Aside from that, there's like one other thing that he does this major this season, and aside from what he does in the finale, he doesn't do a lot this whole season, which is kind of weird. I think because the season's heavily focused on Team RWBY and their investigations to figure out the stuff happening. And they pretty much they team with a couple guys. One of whom it's implied he has a thing for Blake. Yeah, and his name is Sun. Yes, and the other guy's name is Neptune. Now, the teams work out like this. You have RWBY who goes with Weiss, you have Yang who goes with Neptune, and Blake goes with Sun. Obviously, RWBY runs into Penny, who has not been... This is the first time she's been seen since the end of Season 1 for the show, and she reveals to her that she is a robot. And RWBY has no problem with this at all, because she sees her basically as a heart and soul, and trusts her. And then after this, I don't think she's seen after this. No, she just pops up for this one episode, and then Penny is not seen again probably until the very next season. Yeah, it's just kind of weird though. Now, as for Blake, well, she and Sun don't really do a lot this particular investigation. And here's the funny thing. They have Yang and Neptune go visit the guy Junior from her trailer, from her teaser that aired before the start of Season 1. I'm like, wow, bringing back this character. At least there's a minor gag in this episode where it says that, he can't get any muscle jobs because his men are incompetent. Probably because the fact that Yang beat up every single one of these guys like they were nothing. She just plowed right through these guys during her trailer. And, yep. And she and Junior basically have drinks. And he always first was Blondie, never first divided. I don't think she ever told him his name at all. And it's implied he might want to sleep with her, but it doesn't really go anywhere at all. Yeah. But it's a fun little scene. Yep. But as our stuff going on here, we also have a dance, basically, they do for a couple episodes. Yeah, where John says, if I don't get a date dance, I'm wearing a dress. And I'm like, dude, you got turned down by Weiss, and yet you can't ask your teammate who is smoking hot and somewhat famous. You can't ask her out? Why? It's so bizarre, the fact that he never asked her out. And he shows up by himself. He does like to Pyra for a while. I even love the fact he got a chance to dance with her. And I thought it was really nice to Blake. Apparently didn't have a date dance, so she has to go with Sun. But the thing is, she originally didn't want to go to the dance. And then she was told to go anyways. But Yang says, okay, you go to the dance, I'll give you your first dance. She's like, cool. And they had the first dance anyways. And I thought it was so funny that Pyra got a chance with John when he's basically wearing a dress and sneakers. I thought that was so funny. And RWBY, I think she danced with somebody. I'm not sure who she danced with. Now, Blake's obviously danced mostly with Sun. I think that RWBY may have danced with... The other person who did have a dance partner I could think of was Weiss. She's probably the only one who did it. Yeah. And throughout the remainder of the last few episodes, you have them going on a mission, do some reconnaissance in an abandoned city. And they discovered just because they heard rumors that the villains for the series were based out of this particular city, and like somewhere in the southeast. That's all they knew during the investigation. Now, this is basic comes right after the dance thing, where Ruby followed. I think her name was Valerie. I think, and she's one of the villains of this particular section of the series, and she doesn't immediately recognize due to her wearing a mask. I get kind of the reason for that, but her teacher does remember this particular woman as the counter to the Huntress, and it's implied that she might be the boss. But no, I think it's somebody else. She's like a fire sorceress, is what they just kind of describe her. Yeah, well, she basically doesn't say anything. Where she basically breaks into the communications tower. Oh, and what does Weiss do this whole investigation? She goes to the communications tower to get some info from her father's company. That's really the whole point of that particular scene. Was her contacting, I believe, her house, but getting one of the people there. She's like, oh, do you want to talk? Of course, contact Atlas and like contact her company, her father's company, and like, oh, do you want to talk to her? It's like, no, I don't. From what I've read about her father, he's a really terrible person, and I probably will get to like when I get that far talking about her family and how much they're. I mean, they're not terrible. And of course, one thing I do thought was quite funny, though, the fact that John reveals he actually has 5 sisters. Who they are, I have no idea. Yep. And, by the way, do the other 2 members Team Jumper do anything? Aside from what they do in the finale? No, these 2 do pretty much nothing the whole season. I mean, the creator of the series is still voicing for the season, but there's nothing really noteworthy this team actually really does. Well, there's a funny bit where Nora is sleeping and she's sleeping on the book, and when Ren turns a page, puts a page in her head, that was the most funniest thing that they do. And while this is going, they're all studying. This is in the library. We have Team RWBY playing a board game. And here's the thing. The one person who does not know how to play this board game is surprisingly Weiss and Blake. Yang and RWBY have no problem with this game at all. Yep. This is where they get introduced to Sun. Yeah. And the only subplot I get for this season is that the whole investigation is driving Blake insane, where like driving her to a wrong path, where she's got terrible grades, she's not sleeping or eating at all because she's so obsessed with it. Lucky enough for her, or for her friends that are to help her, and she does get better by the end of the season. This whole little thing with her lasts for a little over half the season before they get to the final portion of this particular season. And when they get to and she gets taken to the office of Ozin. Now they could use a new character, this general who is an old friend of his, and apparently Ozin is basically his superior in some way. The general guy is like obsessed with starting a war that might not exist. Yeah, that's a recurring subplot when it comes to him. And there's something at the end of the season that helps sets up the start of the very next season of the show. There's hints about a tournament that's going to take place, which I think might happen in the following season of the show. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, RWBY is not chastised for what she did. She's actually praised by the general for actually seeing something wrong and actually going and trying to stop it. Yes. Under other series when they probably do this because she's a student and she's probably doing something she's not supposed to do, she'd probably get punished for it. Or they probably think she's a liar. That's the stereotypical thing that happens. I'm glad the fact that Monty Oman's writers, the guy who created the series, I'm glad he writes it where, yeah, they perfectly understand the situation and they actually look around. They're actually not stupid. Yeah. Though the teacher, who is one of the teachers of the school, she's written to be somewhat the same, very strict, And she's like this. She doesn't really change her attitude at all throughout the entire series I've seen so far. And then we get to the whole abandoned city thing. They're just investigating for a while. Before they go, they get a present from one of Ruby's relatives. Opens the package up, and it's a dog, an adorable dog. And apparently they decided to stuff some dog food in him. Like, okay. And then Ruby just sneaks him along. And here's the thing. The professor who's actually with him, seems like he's not that good of a fighter. They show later he's a damn good fighter anyways. And he has no problem with Ruby bringing a dog. Like, okay. He thinks this probably is a terrific idea. Bring a dog to a combat situation, because probably a dog probably sniffs something out. And of course, don't get denied, this dog is so adorable. Yeah. So, they look around the city, they spend the night. Ruby does first watch. She has to chase after the dog, which decides to pee on a abandoned building, which, fine. And they come across, surprisingly, just by sheer circumstance, or at least by sheer coincidence, a couple members of the organization Grimm. They're like a terrorist organization in the series. Who work with one of the villains, whose name is Roman. And she follows him for a bit, and then she falls through a hole in the ground without her scythe, and the dog basically goes to find that she contacts her friends. Apparently they're in a low signal area. Somehow they don't really determine this. They never mention it at all. The city is like this. So, oh yeah, and the mission they wanted to do prior to this was hunt down Grimm in this area. But he's like, okay, I'm not going to have you hunt Grimm. I'll have you search in this particular city, which is the area you want to go. Yeah. So, they go down there, and it's basically the professor who's actually kind of, well, who's also just happened to be the head of the actual school itself. Trying to think, what else was there? Oh yeah, they find out Ruby's missing, so they go looking for her, and then of course Ruby, is taken captive straight to Roman, who does kind of kick her, but doesn't exactly severely beat her to a pulp. Because the last couple times they've countered each other, she pretty much ruined his operation. But she gets away first time, but she's stopped by him, and the second time she gets to escape thanks to her friend showing up. And of course, Yang giving her a big hug when she sees him again. And then they proceed to basically fight through a lot of forces. They had to do the thing of like, go on, I'll take care of this. They do this a couple times until eventually, I think it's Blake who actually ends up fighting Roman for a bit, and then Weiss basically is taken out, but she's saved, and then. Of course, apparently his plan is to unleash Grimm on the city of Vale, which causes the edge of the tracks to basically crash right too, and basically, thanks to a series of bombs, launches a whole big, humongous horde of Grimm. And Ruby and Team Ruby is having a tough time dealing with themselves until I think they call for backup. So they call in a couple of student teams, one of the teachers, and a whole bunch of other people, and this is basically everybody's cool moment of the season. Basically, this awesome episode with beautiful music, with awesome rock music, basically seeing all of this awesomeness on screen. Probably as a setup for the very next season for the show. That's probably the whole point of this massive fight scene. Despite the fact that right after this, the creator died. Yep, I'm sure he'd be very happy the fact the series is still on the air and still going really strong from what I can tell anyways. I haven't watched the current season. I will eventually get there, but I will get there. Yep, so everybody's defeated, and of course they mentioned the setup of the tournament which will happen the very next season, and the general will be taking over chief of security, and apparently Ozan basically has got no problem with this at all. The fact that a military general probably decided to persuade a group of politicians, which I believe the scene, I'm seeing this in like three shadowy figures telling like the head of our organization that he's going to do something, and of course the guy, of course, has no problem with this. Now, this scene reminds me very much of the first Avengers movie with the World Security Council. The only difference is the World Security Council is made of about 5 people. Well, this is basically 3 people. I think these people are like the gelling ruling body. Really? 3 people? That seems so stupid. Yep. And there's also a character who popped up in the Pentium episode, a character who dressed very similar to Ruby, with even had the same hair color. Don't know who this person is. We actually do see this woman take off her mask, and Yang did see her briefly when apparently she saved your life. As for the reason for this, have to wait to season 3 to find out. She takes off the helmet, and it's a woman that looks exactly like Yang. Who this person is, I don't really know. Not yet, anyways. I'll probably find out when I watch season 3. Yeah. This season of the show, Volume 2, is really good. And some of you you're probably thinking, though, okay, if the series is so good, why are you also still watching RWBY Half? Well, the reason is because, well, I started the show. I really don't want to follow. I do not want to basically just forget about it just because I got hooked on an awesome show like RWBY. Don't worry, I'm going to go back to RWBY Half. I've only got like 2 seasons left. And then after that, I've got 2 seasons, OVAs, and a couple movies. Basically, every time I finish a season for RWBY Half, I do 1 season for RWBY. You also are thinking, why didn't you do that from the start of your reviews for RWBY Half? Because I didn't think of it. And the only reason why I decided to do this now is because Blake's voice actor is going to be at Comic-Con. That's the only reason why I decided to start this now. And I wanted to talk to her about this particular show. Yep. And I'm not sure how the industry probably would change under the next season. But as for the setting of how the animation was done for this particular season, it's the same level they had the last season. Same exact level. There's not really much change here at all, but I actually don't mind it at all. It's perfectly good animation. Yeah, but not much else to say about RWBY Volume 2. Yep. Now, I probably won't get a chance to do RWBY Volume 3, not until I finish Season 6 for Ranma, which is only about 24 episodes. It'd probably take about 3 or 4 days to get through that particular season. Depends how long it takes me to finish up those particular episodes. And I'm thinking, though, probably in the next, I'd say to finish up RWBY Half, I'd probably finish up, not by this coming week, but by the following week. I'd probably finish up probably in, I'd say about a couple weeks. It'd probably take me to finish up RWBY Half, the anime. The OVA is probably taking me at least a couple of days to get through, plus the specials. So I'm thinking by toward the end of this month, that's probably when I'll finish up RWBY Half and just, well, you're probably thinking maybe at that point I'd focus on RWBY. Well, there's still also the OVAs, the specials, and the 2 films the series had. Yeah. Volume 3 will be done, work done after I finish up Season 6 of RWBY Half. Season 4, I'll work on that after I finish the Season 7 of RWBY Half. 5 after the OVAs and the specials. 6 I'll work on after I watch the 2 films, and then pretty much once I finish the films for RWBY Half, I'll work on 6 and 7. Just to cap off the series. And I probably also, then before I hit, now there's also the spin-off series, Word of the Remnant. I might work on that probably after I finish up Trigun, which probably by my next anime I'd probably be working on as soon as I finish both this series and RWBY Half will be Trigun, and after that probably Inuyasha. But after those 2 particular series, I'm not sure what series I'll probably do next. I haven't decided yet on that part, okay? So yeah, that's it for this particular review. Tomorrow, expect to see reviews for My Hero Academia, Case Closed, my haul video from Comic-Con, because I'm going there tomorrow, and probably RWBY Half tomorrow. Aside from that, there probably is going to be One Punch Man review tomorrow, because I don't know if I'll get time to do it tonight anyways. I probably won't. Okay, so I'll probably do it tomorrow. So I probably am doing about 5 videos tomorrow. Yeah, sounds about right. Okay, but see you next video. Bye.